This video is sponsored by Skillshare. Hi friends! So for a while now, I've been really wanting to try block printing. Pretty much ever since I saw this video by Lil Star Nerd. But the supplies are sort of expensive for something that I have no idea what I'm doing, so I've been holding off. But then, I found this craft kit at Blick, so I think it's a pretty good start. Also, since I have no self-control, I found this speedball kit on sale, but we're just going to start with the Carve-A-Stamp Kit and see how that goes first. So this kit, even though it says stamps, it is definitely the block printing, lino cutting kind of thing that I've been wanting. It says that it has 125 templates and it makes 12 custom rubber stamps. Plus, it's got very kid aesthetic packaging, so hopefully it will be at my skill level. Ooh, it even has how-to videos that I will not be watching. I'm just gonna go into this blind. So let's just open it. Okay, what do we have? Instruction manual, tracing paper, the block, I think, the carving tool, an ink pad, and a teeny tiny pencil. I think I'm just checking that the ink pad is still wet. Yep. And let's look at the carving tool. It came with 5 blades, and this... Well, honestly, I have no idea why that's in there, so let me just put it back in. Alright, so here's the big old block. And this thing is supposed to make 12 stamps? How is this going to make 12 stamps? Like, you cut it in half, and then each half makes 6? Those would be tiny. That's insanity. Let me just peruse the instructions. Oh, we're gonna carve both sides of the block. That makes more sense. And here we have the templates. There's 3 different sizes, so 6 can fit on each side. I'm gonna trace the templates onto this tracing paper, and I think for the biggest stamp, I'm gonna start with this rainbow. I'll just trace around the picture and then color it in so I know where I'm not gonna carve. For the medium-sized ones, I'm gonna do another rainbow, but this time I'm gonna carve out the stripes and then leave the background as the stamp. Don't mind the small coloring earthquakes, I forgot to switch tripods. Now for the rest of the stamps on this side, I'm gonna do the planet and then these 3 spacey sort of ones down here. They seem like pretty simple shapes that are gonna be easy to carve. After they're all traced out, I just put the tracing paper pencil side down on the block and then rubbed it with the back of the carving tool to transfer the drawing. I touched up the lines a little bit and then onto the carving. The tool in the kit came with 5 different blades, and the instructions say to start with the smallest tip labeled number 1. And then I'm supposed to use this dowel to push the tip in since it's sharp. Now I'm ready to carve. No, wait. How do I hold the tool? Got it. Now I'm ready. No, the blade's wiggling in the tool. Okay, now I really am ready. I'm just gonna carve towards my buddy and not my body and make a little line. Oh yeah, that feels so satisfying. Okay, I'm just gonna start with the lightning bolt since it's pretty chunky and it doesn't have a lot of small details. And I don't really know what I'm doing here, so I'm just gonna start with the outline. Is this too deep? I'm assuming not, and that the white is there so that I can tell when I've gone deep enough. The instructions say it's like peeling a carrot, but I've never peeled a carrot. Also, the blade keeps falling out of the tool. I'm trying to make really nice, crisp corners, but I am struggling. I don't know if there's like a specific technique for that, or if that's just not a thing that you can do with block printing. These stars. Ooh boy, they were a struggle. Maybe it's the small space, maybe it's the wobbly tool, Or maybe it's that I'm a beginner. Or actually, it's probably my lifelong fight with creating stars. Either way, these stars are definitely looking rough. I was starting to get really frustrated, so I decided to switch to the moon. Actually, just kidding. I decided to switch to a bigger blade and clear out all the background around the lightning bolt. Maybe this will give me some practice without completely ruining everything. Even though I'm a little frustrated with my skill at this, I have to say that the actual physical act of carving this rubber is so super satisfying. That sounds kind of inappropriate, but I don't really know how to describe it. A few things that I am noticing as I go is that it's really easy to cut deeper and deeper if you're not careful, especially if you're cutting long strips. So I'm trying to remind myself to do small, shallow cuts and then go back and clear more if I need to. I also noticed moving the block around is way easier than trying to make curves with my hand with the tool. But this tool doesn't seem small enough to get into the little spaces between the lines. Like, it can do the first cut fine, but since it's V-shaped, the cut gets wider if you go deeper. And I don't really know how shallow is too shallow. Ooh, that's looking choppy. But what's done is done, so let me just clean all this junk up and try to brush off the little bits. I did try cleaning off the stamp with some alcohol, which did absolutely nothing, but just know that I did try. But now it's time to test out the stamps. I'll throw some ink on here, put the paper over it. This is just some multimedia paper that I had on hand. And then I'm going to rub it with the back of the carving tool, because I've seen people do something like this. Did it work? Well, kind of. I can definitely see where I didn't rub over it, so the ink didn't transfer. And there are some rough edges, some choppy lines, and those stars will never see the light of day again. But the rainbow looks okay-ish, actually. For this being the first time I've even held a lino cutting tool, I'm actually pretty happy with the progress. Something about learning new things really gets my creativity flowing. And there are plenty of new things to learn with today's sponsor, Skillshare. Skillshare is the largest online learning community for creatives with thousands of classes ranging from art and design to film and video. They even have writing and business classes. Like this Adobe Premiere Pro Essentials course by Daniel Scott. This class was a lifeline and taught me everything I needed to know to edit my YouTube videos when I was starting out. I've been a member of Skillshare for a few years now, and they're the first place I turn to when I need to up my content game. Skillshare has tons of classes taught by industry experts for all skill levels, so I can dive in, learn at my own pace, and actually get better at the things that I'm passionate about. Because there are so many classes, it can be kind of hard to know where to start, but Skillshare has created learning paths, curated class lists meant to be taken in order to build on a topic and help you improve even faster. I'm currently working my way through the Adobe Illustrator Basics learning path so that I can build up my digital art and illustration skills enough that I can create a few products this year. I jumped at the chance to work with Skillshare, and I want to give you the chance to check them out too. That's why the first 500 people to use my link in the description will receive a 1-month free trial of Skillshare. Get started today. Thank you so much to Skillshare for sponsoring today's video. Alright, I washed the stamp off with soap and water, and now I'm just going to clean up this one little area where it left a pretty big mark. I actually don't really mind all this background noise too much. I mean, I could shave that down a little more, but I don't care too much. Now, time for the other side of the block. I'm going to try a few more difficult designs, like the whale, a to and from tag, a heart, this piece of candy, a light bulb, and a balloon. I sort of picked them with a few design ideas in mind. Like maybe I could paint on some watercolor or something and stamp over them, or make a cool little card or something. I followed the same steps as before, transferring the designs, fixing up the lines, and then carving them up. I tried to focus on going nice and slow and really getting the outline straight and crisp before I moved on to the larger sections. I started with what I thought would be the easier designs first. And I still did really struggle with the smaller areas. I tried tilting the blade to sort of fit it right up against the edge, but that really just sort of peeled the rubber up. I also tried the flat blade in the pack to sort of cut out the really tiny areas. And I mean, I got them cleared out, but you can definitely see how deep I cut. Hopefully that doesn't affect the stamping. I'm also not sure if these random scratches on the whale or like this gouge on the heart are gonna show. With my luck, they probably will. Also, update on the tool. When I first started, I could only push the blade about halfway in, but by the end of carving this second side, I was able to push the blade all the way down into the handle. I don't know if that means that it's loosening up and maybe eventually the tool won't be able to hold the blades anymore at all. Also, one time I fully got the blade stuck on the wooden dowel and I spent a long time trying to figure out how to get it off without slicing up my hands. But eventually we got to where we are and the block is carved. So I have my test paper from before and we're just going to stamp the other side. I'm going to really smush the paper down on there with my hands. And let's see. Oh, I didn't cut out his eye. I'm an idiot. Oh well, those scratches showed up anyway. The gouge on that heart did make an appearance. The to and from is okay. The balloon has a scratch, of course. I like the candy, and I actually really like the light bulb. So let me wash the stamp, and then I need to cut these all apart. The instructions say that you can use the flat blade with the tool, but that's way too wobbly. So instead, I'm going to use this craft knife that has injured me more than once. I have the worst luck, and not only did I stab myself in the hand with this knife, I also knocked it off a shelf one time and directly into my foot. Don't worry though, no roses were injured today. The craft knife is cutting through the block really easily, and I'm just checking both sides as I go to make sure that I don't cut through the designs themselves. Then I'm going to put that blade away really quickly so there's no accidents. And I'm just going to pick out a few designs that I think look good. Then we're going to try to make something cute. With the stamps I want picked out, I decided to make something sort of arty but small, like bookmarks. And luckily, in my paper hoard, I happen to have this watercolor bookmark pad. It's just about the perfect size, and the paper is nice and thick. For this first one, I'm just going to throw on some loosey-goosey watercolor and then stamp over it. I still don't really know what I'm doing when it comes to watercolor, but for this, I don't really care. I'm just using pretty colors and putting paint down wherever. It did eventually start to look like that colorful, swirly rock stuff. God, I wish my brain retained vocabulary better. Agate. I think agate is what I'm thinking of. Well, anyway, it started to look like that, so I just leaned into it even further. Now, once it's dried, I didn't want to put red over it, and I didn't have any other color stamps, so I'm just going to use acrylic paint. Let me just de-slime it a bit. Then I used one of those sponge brushes that we all have but have no use for to put the paint on and then stamped the heart on. It doesn't go on perfectly or opaque because it's cheap paint, but that's fine. I did use the sponge to stamp on a little more paint along the top and the bottom to make it a little bit more even. Once all of that was dry, I used packing tape to seal everything in. The tape is a little narrower than the bookmark, so I trimmed down one side. I also could have laminated this, but I didn't feel like driving to my classroom to get my laminator. I do wish the hearts were a little better laid out, both horizontally and vertically, but the colors are really pretty, so it's not that bad. I also stamped the rainbow over a nice rainbow bookmark, and when I taped it, I really didn't want to trim either side, so I did a second line of tape on the bottom. I'm not sure if it's super noticeable, but it doesn't matter to me because this is my favorite thing that I made out of all of them. To use the light bulb stamp, I plotted out some rectangles of color roughly the same size of the stamp. Then I stamped the bulb back and forth over each rectangle. I did stamp more paint over the blank areas and around the bulbs a little bit, just to make it a little more even looking. When it was dry, I used a silver paint marker to draw on a little wire down the center. When I taped it to seal it in, I did trim it since it was sort of off to one side anyway, and I actually really like it. I would maybe change the colors if I did it again, but I love the design actually. A couple of designs that I didn't like were these little cards that I made with the candy and the balloon stamps. I used the same bookmarker paper for these, so all of the mistakes were on me. The first design started out okay, but it really just went sideways almost immediately. The color choices, oh man. And then I just kept trying to add things to help it, but really I was just kicking it when it was down. I went ahead and stamped it anyway, just for practice, but let's just not linger on that for too long. I did also make this balloon card, but I didn't really think through using black paint for the stamping because it looks kind of threatening. Like I'm inviting you to your own funeral. So after all of that, what do I think? I think that I definitely have a lot to learn, but it was still really fun. And I have lots of ideas. So I definitely want to try this again. And I do have this speedball kit still. I just didn't have time to get to it this week. What do you think? Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.